It is a pattern review as well as a watch me sew for Simplicity 9335, which is a Skort. So if that's some content you would like to see, keep on watching. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Rochelle from Rochelle.Handmade.Designs, and in this video I'm going to give you a very quick pattern review and then off to the watch me sew this Skort together. All right, so even though it says watch me sew, it's more like a sew along style if you will, you know what I'm saying? But before we do so, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe button, and also turn on the notification bell so you are notified every time I upload a new video. If you are new to the channel, welcome. Hello, ciao, guten tag, aloha, hola, konnichiwa, wagwan, bonjour. If you are returning, you know what to do. Go get you a quick snack, something to drink, come on back so we could go ahead and talk about it, okay? So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right on into this pattern review for the Skort using Simplicity 9335. All right, so the pattern review is for this pattern right here, Simplicity 9335. So I'm just gonna get my own. You guys know how I do because I just didn't have time to check Simplicity website. So this is a Mrs. Skirt in two lengths. So view A and view B are your skirt options. View C, what I created, is the Skort. Now, I have not purchased or worn a Skort since I was like 12 or 13 years old. So it's been over 25 years since the last time I wore a Skort, okay? So I wanted to do so, and I'm gonna get into more details about it. But I did the Skort, which is view C on this pattern. It also has front panels, it has pockets, it has a nice elastic waistband as well. So that's the pattern description for this pattern. Let's talk about the skill level. So the skill level for this pattern, I think it's rated as easy or easy to sew pattern. I'm not sure. If I'm incorrect, I'll put it up on the screen so you're able to see, but I'm gonna rate this as beginner friendly, easy. From my watch me sew, you will see how easy it is to put together. The only thing you have to really be looking out for is the front panel. Pretty much, that's pretty much it as far as what could trip you up. All right, so I'm gonna rate this pattern as a beginner friendly, easy pattern. Let's talk about the notion shoes. So for the notion shoes, you only need elastic and not much. You just basically need your waist measurement plus 1 inch in order to insert the elastic through the casing, which is pattern piece number 4. All right, let's talk about the fabric used. So if you looked at my blazer, my unlined blazer, then you will know that this fabric is from HouseofMami Wata. It is called Musing, and I believe that this fabric is still available on HouseofMamiWata.com as well as on Etsy. I will put the fabric link in the description box, directly to the fabric in the description box below, as well for her Etsy shop. And if it's available on HouseofMamiWata.com, I will go ahead and place that in the description box below so you can purchase. If you are looking for that gray style, it's like a gray fabric that's just like this, it is sold out. Reason being is because I tried to get it, okay, last week, and it was sold out. All right, so the gray one is no longer available. All right, let's talk about pattern pieces. Now for this pattern, it's only 6 pattern pieces. Yes, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, 6 pattern pieces. So it's very quick and easy sew. I want to say this took me 2 hours to sew from cutting to completely sewing it together. All right, now I did have to take a break. So in the sew along, you will see how I ended up putting on some pajamas, all right, because it got cold. But the pattern pieces that you will need is pattern piece number 2, the front panel, pattern piece number 3, the pocket, pattern piece number 4, the casing, pattern piece number 6, the front, pattern piece number 7, the back, and then pattern piece number 8, the front band and tight ends that goes on the Skort. Those are all the pattern pieces that you need. Let's talk about the pattern sizing. Now this pattern comes, I believe this pattern comes in 2 separate envelopes. The first envelope is 6 through 14 and the second envelope is 14 to 22. The size that I cut is a size 16. I did not make any adjustments. I did not size up the hips. I did not make any adjustment. Reason being is because I cut this pattern out back in September, forgot to make the adjustment, before cutting out the fabric. I'm just gonna be honest with you. Now, one thing that I do wish I would have done is size up the hips, because they were not tight in the hips per se, but I wish I would have gave myself at least another inch of room. So that's why you don't put off a pattern for so long after you cut it. All right, unless you lose weight. I did not gain, but I did not lose either. So yeah, so that's what happened there with the pattern sizing, the size I cut. Let's talk about modifications, which I did not make any modifications whatsoever. Did it look like the photos or the drawing on the pattern envelope? To be honest with you, no. So yes and no. So in my eyes, no, because I am a thicker girl than the model, okay? So in the hip area, it does not look the same. However, if you're looking at it through the lens of, does it look like exactly what the model is wearing? Yes. Although I am a thicker girl, okay, than what the model is a little bit more petite than I am, but it does look like the photos and the drawing on the pattern envelope. All right, let's talk about likes and dislikes. All right, so, well, let me go back one. Are the instructions easy to follow? Yes, they are easy to follow. However, if you just basically pay attention to the watch me sew, it's super easy to sew, all right? Likes and dislikes. The only dislike that it's not necessarily a dislike. I think it's me personally, and to be honest, I should have dropped the crotch by 1 inch, because I felt like it was a little up too high for the crotch curve. So I should have dropped that, even though I did give myself 1 inch. However, I should have gave myself 2 inches in the crotch curve instead of that 1 inch that I normally do. But I mean, like, it still looks good. It's not tight in the crotch area, so I'm good with that, but I should have gave myself another inch. That's the only dislike that I had, but I love the fabric. I love the pattern. So let's go ahead and talk about first time experiences. So this is the first time that I have ever done a skort. Now, it's just basically shorts with front panel pieces. That's basically it. So even though it's the first time that I have done it, guess what? It's super easy to sew. So I want to say, pull this pattern out, Simplicity 9335, and give it a try this spring or summer. All right, thank me later. All right, so let's go ahead and move into would I sew it again? To be honest, yes and no. Yes, I would sew it again as far as shorts, just some easy, quick shorts. But do I need another skort of this kind? No. Now, I would do it as a skirt, right? Or a skort by putting shorts underneath a skirt. I would do it that way, but not particular the same way I did this pattern, just to let you know. Would I recommend this pattern to others? Absolutely. Like, I feel like everyone should try a pattern at least one time. All right, so if skorts are not your vibe, I completely understand, but I would say that even if you want to do some quick, easy shorts and not a skort and put these front panels on, do it. All right, don't let nobody tell you different. All right, so let's talk about my pattern rating. So my pattern rating for this pattern, I'm going to stamp this as a 4 out of 5, and the reason why is simply because I feel like these shorts or skort could have been a little bit longer. Other than that, I think everything else worked out perfectly. So yeah, that's it. That's my 2 cents. All right, so that's it for this pattern review. I hope you enjoyed it. Now that we talked about this pattern review, let's go ahead and get right on into the Watch Me Sew. If I ever took it, I'll made it pay. So the dogs are we gon' get it, that's a fact. They counting on me, I can't let my people down. Standing tall, 10 toes to the ground, if I ever... All right, so let's go ahead and get into this kind of like a watch me sew, but not a watch me sew. It's kind of like a sew along, but a watch me sew. I'm not gonna get into complete details because this is pretty much an easy to sew pattern. I'm just gonna kind of like walk you through the main details of how to put it together, but I'm not going to do like a full-blown sew along like I would normally do. It's just kind of like you're gonna watch me put it together if you choose to, all right? So I'm doing the skort, which is you see on this pattern. The pattern pieces you will need is pattern piece number 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, and 8 in order to construct the skort. Pattern piece number 2 is your front panel, I'm just going to show you all the pattern pieces. So the pattern pieces you will need is pattern piece number 2, your front panel, pattern piece number 3, your pocket, pattern piece number 4, which is your casing, and then you need pattern piece number 6, which is your front pattern piece. Pattern piece number 7, your back pattern piece, you're going to cut 2 there. And then you need pattern piece number 8, which is your front band and ties, you need to cut 2. Now, one thing that I'll mention is, like, you do not need any interfacing for this skort. You're just going to basically be using some elastic in order to create the skort portion of your skort, right? So the first thing that I did is I went ahead and stay stitched pattern piece number 2 at the very top in the direction of the arrows like it shows on your pattern instructions. You need to do that for pattern piece number 2, the front panel, pattern piece number 6, your front, and then pattern piece number 7, which is your back. Go ahead and stay stitch the top portion in the directions of the arrow. So basically for your back and your front, you're going to start at the side seam and go towards the center front or the center back, whichever pattern piece you're doing. For the front panel, you're going to start at the side and go straight to the center front as well. So that's what you're going to do when you are stay stitching. Now moving on from the stay stitching, I'm not sure what pattern number we are well, if you're following the directions, you should be at step number 2. But what you're going to do is, with right sides together, you're going to pin one front to one back at the inseam. So go ahead and pin one back to one front at the inseams now. All right, so now that I have the inseams pinned for both of my front and back pattern pieces using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, go ahead and sew your inseam, finish it off, and press it to the back. Go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have my inseam sewn, and I have it finished off just like you see here, I'm gonna go ahead and do my crotch seams by placing right sides together. So I'm just gonna place this one on top of the other one. So I have my front on my left side and my back on my right side. Just make sure you have the same thing that I'm doing as well. And the first thing you wanna do is match up your sides, your inseam, and then pin all the way along your crotch. So go ahead and do that. Now, make sure that your seam allowance is pressed towards the back portion of your skort. So go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have the crotch seam sewn, pinned together using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning, so all the way around, and back stitch at the end. Once you do that, finish off your seam. So go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I went ahead and sewn my crotch seams right here all the way around that U shape, this is what I have right here. So the next thing you're gonna do is grab pattern piece number 4, your casing, and then you will have a straight edge, and then the other edge has 2 notches. So with the portion that has the notch, you're going to pin that to the upper portion of your front and back seams. So just match up the notches and pin all the way across now. All right, so now that I have the casing pinned onto my top portion of my skort with using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning and at the end, sew your seams. Then after you sew your seams, you're gonna trim it down and press the seam allowance towards the casing. You're going to do that for both of your front and your back pieces. So you're gonna do both the same way, all right? So go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have my casing sewn on, I trimmed it down, I pressed the seam towards the casing. I'm going to move this out of the way. Just note that my side seams are not sewn together just yet because I do not have my pocket or my front panel on yet. So you will, if you've sewn your side seams already, go ahead and rip them up simply because we're not there yet, okay? So just go ahead and move your skort or your short section to the side. Now grab pattern piece number 8. Now I am going out of order for just 1 second and you'll see why. So I have done already one of my front bands and I'm going to show you how I did that. So the first thing you want to do is, now this is my wrong side right here. Have it labeled. This is my right side. So what you want to do is you have 2 dots right here. I'm going to turn it this way so you can see it. 2 dots right here. You want to reinforce. So basically you're going to go 1 inch on both sides of the dot. So about 1 inch, and then just sew across the dot. And then you're going to clip to the dot without clipping through your stitches on both sides like you see here. All right. After you do that, now, I did a whole 1/2 inch all the way up, but you do not need to do that. I'm going to take that out. You only need to use your basting stitch, and basically you're going to be pressing under a 1/2 inch from that dot that you just clipped all the way to the end up here where you have these 2 dots right here. All right. You're just going to press in a 1/2 inch just like that. All right. Once you press in a 1/2 inch with right sides together, you're going to leave this other portion that has the dot. You're going to leave this portion alone, and all you're going to do, now remind you this is pressed in. After you press this portion in right here, you're just going to do a right sides together, and you're going to pin all the way down and then sew using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance from this dot all the way down. You're gonna pivot when you get to this edge and pivot and go down and across and back stitch at the beginning and at the end. So go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have it pressed right here where I had that stitching, now I'm going to pin right sides together. Make sure that that stays pressed under. So I'm going to turn it this way so I can see where my pressed edge is, and then I'm just going to pin all the way down. So go ahead and pin now. All right, so now that I have it pinned, starting at that dot right here, using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the dot, so all the way down. Once you get towards the corner, pivot, still using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, so all the way across and back stitch at the end. Once you do that, you're going to trim it down and turn it right side out and give it a good press. So go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I went ahead and stitched that together, I trimmed it down, I turned it right side out and gave it a good press. This is what the tie band, the front band and tie ends, I can't even think of what it's called, right? This is what it's looking like right now. So just go ahead and move both of these off to the side. We will use both of these in just a second. And then go ahead and grab pattern piece number 2 and 3. All right, so I'm going to move 3 out of the way, but it's the same thing, okay? So we're gonna make some narrow hems, and basically what's gonna happen is this is pattern piece number 2. Make sure you mark the wrong side of yours. And what you're going to do is you're going to make a narrow hem right here, okay? So I'm going to show you this right quick. So I'm going to bring this back like this. And first you want to find where is your front edge, right? Now this is the side seam right here. Why? Because I'm looking at it right here, and this is the side seam where the notch is, right? So you want to do the front edge, which is the right side right here looking at it. Make sure you transfer your dot that you have up at the top as well if you have not done so already. So what you're going to do is on this right side, you're going to form a narrow hem. And how you do that is you press in 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, open it out, press the raw edge to that line, and then press up again and encase it and sew top stitch basically at about a good 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. All right, so that's what you're going to do for your narrow hem. After you do that, the seam allowance for the hem allowance, the hem allowance is 1 1/4. So after you do the narrow hem, you're going to press up 1 1/4, open it out, press to that seam, and then press up again, and then sew your hem in place. All right, you could do that for sure. All right, after you do the front panel, you're going to do the pocket pretty much the same way. And what you're going to do on the pocket is you're going to narrow hem this slanted edge right here. Basically press in 5/8 of an inch right here, open it out, press to that seam, and then do your narrow hem there. All right. Once you do that, you're going to create a basting stitch all the way around your pocket using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And then after you do that, you're going to press to that line, and then we're going to stitch our pocket onto our front panels. All right, so that's why you have this box right here, which is the pocket line. So basically, after you do the narrow hem, you go press under 5/8 of an inch seam allowance on the front, the bottom, and this angled side. Leave the top alone. You will not need to do that. And then it's going to fit in this box just like that. All right, so go ahead and do those steps now. All right, so now that I have the front panel done, so I have the narrow hem done from the front portion, which is the front edge, and then I have the hem done as well for my front panel. Now moving over to the pocket, which is pattern piece number 3, I went ahead and narrow hemmed that pocket opening, that slanted edge right here. I went ahead and serged the pocket area right here and at the bottom, and where that notch is, I left that undone because it's going to be attached to the side portion of your front panel. All right, so that's what it's supposed to look like. So now what you're going to do is you're going to flip it over like this. So you're going to have the wrong side of your pocket on the right side of the front panel. Okay, now you have a notch right here on the side panel. You're going to match that notch up with the notch on your pocket and pin. All right, you're going to go to the top, and you have a notch at the top of your pocket and a notch at the top of your front panel. You're going to pin there as well. All right, so just pin across there. And now what you want to do is pin along the front portion of your pocket and the hem portion of your pocket now. All right, so now that you have your pocket pinned, I have both of them pinned, so I'm going to show both of them. All you're going to do is you're going to top stitch the bottom and the front portion. After you top stitch the bottom and the front portion, you're going to baste across the top and the sides. So go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have the top stitching done and the bottom, I went ahead and basted the side and the top. Next thing you want to do is go ahead and grab your tie band, your front band and tie end, and then with right sides together, you're going to pin starting at that notch and pin all the way across, making sure that that press edge is free. So go ahead and pin all the way across now. And then using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, you're going to backstitch at the beginning and at the end. Once you do that, you're going to press the seam allowance towards the casing, and then the press edge, you're going to basically make sure that that press edge is about 1/8 of an inch past that stitching line. Once you do that, you're going to press it all out and then top stitch on the band, all right, on the casing, the front band and tie. All right, so go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that we have the front panels and pockets done, we have that front band and tie ends done as well. You could clean up the loose threads if you choose. So now what you want to do is grab the actual short portion, I guess is what you can call it, And what you're going to do is you're going to pin your front panels to your front. Now what you want to do is make sure you're looking at the front. You see how it says 7 right here, which is the back. So I do not want to pin it to that side, right? This is my back, so you don't want that. I want to get my front. So make sure you have 2 of your front, your entire front, which is pattern piece number 6. So I'm going to check to make sure. So right here, I'm going to turn it so you can see it on the table really good. So it says number 6 right here, front, and then number 6 right here is the front as well. So I want to make sure that this number 6 is on my table, and I'm just going to be looking at it just like this. The other portion is out of my way, right? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the panel pieces and basically pin matching up the dot and the side, okay? So I want to make sure that this top portion right here, make sure that it is pin, that top is touching that dot, and then you're going to pin there, okay? And then you're going to pin along the other side of your, along the side of your front, okay? So go ahead and pin that now. And make sure that that back edge that you pressed up, make sure that that is up facing the casing piece as well. So go ahead and pin that now. All right, so now that I have one side, I'll be pinning the other side here shortly, but I have it pinned, and I'm going to go to my sewing machine and using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, I'm just gonna baste it on. Now, because I'm basting it on, I'm gonna tell you something else that you need to do. You need to make sure that that notch right here is lined up with the front and the bottom portion of your panels, okay? Now, because I want to sew in one continuous seam, I'm not going to baste this on, because what I'm going to do is make sure that the back is on to the front right sides together, and I'm just going to repin it to where everything stay in place, okay? So making sure that my seam for my casing is pressed towards the top portion, I'm going to make sure that the top is matched up, okay? And what I'm going to do is, once again, I'm going to basically repin everything together, making sure that the panel is sandwiched in between my front and my back. And then I'm just going to repin all the way up the side seam. So go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have the side seam pinned front to back at the side seam, and I have the front panel piece sandwiched in between the front and the back, I'm going to start at the hem, and using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and a regular length stitch, I'm going to back stitch at the beginning and sew all the way up to the top and back stitch at the end. Once I do that, I'm going to finish off my seams, and I'm going to do that for both side seams. So go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I went ahead and stitched together the side seams, now at the top, you need to make sure that you leave a little opening on the left-hand side for sure. So there's only two to three things that you need to do. So after you do that, make sure that you press the side, which is the left side where you have that opening. You have that little opening right there for your elastic, okay? So the next thing you want to do is create at the very top, create a basting stitch about 1/2 of an inch seam allowance all the way around. After you do that, you're going to press that 1/2 inch and then trim it down to 1/4 of an inch. After you trim it down to the 1/4 of an inch, right, it's going to be pressed. You're going to make sure that you press all the way around and pin on the right side to stitch in the ditch. Now make sure that you do not catch in your front panel pieces. That's where you have the ties. So when you fold it over to catch it, make sure you do not sew your front panel pieces down into that casing, okay? That's one thing that you want to make sure. So make sure you do that, and then you're going to stitch all the way around. Once you do that, you're going to insert your elastic all the way around for your casing. And then the only thing that's left after you do that is to stitch your hem. Now your hem is a 1 1/4, but I highly advise you to try them on and see what is best for your hem allowance. All right. Once you do that, you are all done with your Skort, which is Simplicity 9335. I hope you enjoyed this sew with me or watch me sew. If you make these Skort or shorts or whatever you want to call it, do not forget to tag me at Rochelle.Handmade.Design on Instagram, or you can tag me here on YouTube. All right, so there you have it. That is the complete pattern review and the watch me sew. I hope you enjoyed this video. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on the notification bell so you are notified every time I upload a new video. Stay tuned because we have 2 more coats left in the coat series. I'm coming with a wrap coat, also a winter coat as well. So stay tuned for those 2 coats that I will wrap up the coat series for this month. So I hope you enjoyed your holidays, and as always, keep sewing.